How ancient people named their food. Thousands of years ago, ancient people lived surrounded by forests, rivers, mountains, and fields. They depended on plants for food, medicine, clothing, and survival. But there was one simple problem. Every useful plant needed a name. Imagine an ancient village. A farmer returns from the forest carrying a strange plant. People gather around. One person touches it. Another smells it. Someone tastes it. Then an older villager says a word. The others repeat it. And slowly, that sound becomes the name of the plant. But who actually created that name? Did one person decide it? Or did the name slowly develop through generations? Most likely, ancient food names were not created in one official moment. They developed through everyday life. A parent taught a child the name of a plant. A farmer taught another farmer which seed to plant. A cook needed to distinguish one ingredient from another. A trader needed to identify the food he was selling. The name became part of the community's memory. But then something happened that could change the name completely. People began to travel. Ancient traders moved between settlements carrying grain, fruits, seeds, spices, and other foods. They also carried their words. Imagine a trader arriving in a distant village with an unfamiliar food. The villagers ask what it is. The trader gives them its name. But their language has different sounds. So they pronounce the word differently. That new version spreads through the village. Later, another trader hears it and carries it somewhere else. The process repeats. The food travels. The name travels. And slowly, both begin to change. This is why a food's name can sometimes reveal an ancient journey. It can show that people from different communities met, traded, and shared knowledge. And sometimes the original meaning of the name disappears completely. One of the most interesting examples is the potato. Long before Europeans arrived in South America, indigenous peoples of the Andes were cultivating potatoes. They knew many varieties and understood how to grow and preserve them. Then, Europeans encountered the plant. The word entered Spanish as patata, influenced by indigenous American terminology, and the word batata, associated with the sweet potato. As the food moved through Europe, the word changed. Eventually, English speakers came to use potato. A simple word had traveled across an ocean and through several languages. And the journey of the tomato was just as fascinating. The tomato was cultivated in Mesoamerica long before Europeans arrived. Its name entered Spanish from Nahuatl, an indigenous language. The Spanish form became tomat. Then the word traveled through Europe. Eventually, English speakers used tomato. Behind one ordinary food name was a journey through different peoples, languages, and centuries. And this was only the beginning. Because ancient people didn't name food only by borrowing words. Sometimes they named things because of their shape, color, taste, smell, location, or appearance. And sometimes, a name that began as a simple description became a word that survived for generations. Ancient people did not always borrow names from other languages. Sometimes they created names from things they already understood. A strange fruit might receive a name because of its shape. A plant might be named because of its color. A root could receive a name connected to where it grew. A spice might be named because of its taste or smell. Imagine an ancient traveler discovering a fruit he had never seen before. He looks at its shape. He smells it. He tastes it. Then he compares it with something familiar. Perhaps it reminds him of another fruit. Perhaps its shape looks like something already known. So the new food receives a name based on that comparison. Over time, people stop thinking about the original meaning. The description becomes the name. And generations continue using it. Now imagine an ancient marketplace. Farmers are selling grain. Traders are carrying spices. Families are buying fruit. A merchant arrives with unfamiliar seeds. People from different regions are speaking different languages. One person hears a strange word. Another repeats it. A trader remembers it. Later, he carries that word to another city. The word continues moving. This is how marketplaces became places where languages changed. Food and language were traveling together. Sometimes the original name survived. Sometimes it was shortened. Sometimes its pronunciation changed. And sometimes it was completely replaced. Rice gives us another example of this long journey. Rice was cultivated in Asia thousands of years ago. As it spread between different regions, people used different words for it. Those words also traveled between languages. The English word rice ultimately passed through European languages from much older terms connected with rice. By the time the word reached English, it had already traveled through several linguistic stages. The ancient farmer growing rice could never have imagined such a journey. For him, the word simply meant the crop growing in his fields. The same thing happened with onions. The onion was cultivated thousands of years before the English language existed. The English word onion developed through older European languages and ultimately traces back to Latin forms related to unio. The food was ancient. The modern word came much later. This shows something important. A food can be thousands of years old, while the name used for it is much younger. And sometimes the original name of an ancient food disappears completely. A farmer may have spoken the word every day. But if nobody wrote it down, and the language later disappeared, that word could vanish forever. Only a small number of ancient food names survived, and some of those surviving names traveled incredibly far. Imagine an ancient child walking through a field. An older farmer points toward a plant and says its name. The child repeats it. Years later, that child becomes an adult and teaches the same word to another generation. But the pronunciation slowly changes. One sound disappears. Another sound becomes different. Nobody notices. Generations pass. The language changes. Yet the word survives. This is how an ancient food name could travel through centuries without remaining exactly the same. Sometimes written records helped preserve these names. Ancient scribes recorded foods on tablets, manuscripts, and other materials. They recorded grain, fruits, vegetables, spices, oils, and other products. These records can reveal what ancient people grew, traded, stored, and ate. But many food names were never written down. They existed only in speech. When the language disappeared, the names disappeared with it. Imagine an ancient village abandoned after generations of settlement. The houses collapse, the fields become empty, the people move away. Their language is eventually forgotten. Thousands of years later, almost everything connected to that community may be gone. But perhaps one word survived. Another neighboring language may have borrowed it centuries earlier. That word continues moving from one generation to another. The civilization disappears. But the name remains. Food names could also reveal ancient migration and trade. A word found in several related languages may suggest that people once communicated or traded across those regions. A strange word appearing far from the place where a food originated can sometimes provide a clue about how the food traveled. The plant moves, the people move, and sometimes the name moves with them. But the journey is rarely simple. A word can change pronunciation. It can change spelling. It can be shortened. It can be combined with another word. Sometimes people misunderstand it and create a completely new form. After hundreds of years, the final word may look nothing like its original version. Yet somewhere inside it, the ancient sound is still hiding. Think again about the potato. Its story began in the Andes with indigenous farmers. The plant eventually crossed the Atlantic. The name traveled through Spanish and other European languages. Eventually, it became potato. The tomato followed another path. Its history connects an indigenous Mesoamerican word with Spanish and later European languages. Rice, onion, banana, and countless other foods have their own complicated journeys. Each name carries a different story. Some stories are well documented. Others remain uncertain. And some have disappeared completely. The most mysterious food names may be the ones nobody can explain anymore. An ancient word may appear in a damaged inscription. Researchers may know that it refers to a food, but they may not know exactly how the word was pronounced. They may not know why the food received that name. They may not know who first created it. All that remains is a small trace, a word, a fragment, a sound preserved by time. And somewhere thousands of years earlier, An ancient person may have looked at that food for the first time and spoken the word that began the journey. The people who heard it first are gone. Their homes are gone. Their markets are gone. Their voices are gone. But sometimes, the name survives. And that may be the strangest thing about ancient food. The food can travel across continents. Languages can disappear. Civilizations can fall. But one small word can continue speaking for the people who first gave it a name.